Hello, it's my absolute pleasure to be with you for this webinar where we investigate the brand new product coming to you, Adaptable Transport Spray. So thank you very much to my colleagues in the SEVA team for inviting me to spend some time with you today. As you will all be aware, there has been a relationship between dogs and humans for tens of thousands of years. And the majority of that time, that relationship has been relying on what dogs can do for us. We have given them jobs to do. And you can see here on this slide, this image of a dog helping with the livestock, so with herding of those sheep. And of course, they've had roles such as helping with hunting and as also with guarding. But that relationship was very much welcoming dogs to our lives on the basis of what they can do to help us. And over the last few decades, there's been a real change in that relationship. We've moved from dogs being mainly there to help us with things, to have a role, a job, to actually being part of our family. We've welcomed them into our homes as family members. So this is a much more intimate, a much closer relationship between dogs and humans. And with that closer, more intimate relationship, we have increased expectations on the dogs and what we expect them to do, what we expect them to cope with and how we expect them to behave. There's been humanisation from the point of view that they're welcomed as family members, and that brings greater emotional as well as financial investments, which is a really good thing from a veterinary point of view because it helps us to improve the health and well-being of those pets with the clients on board. Younger generations of owners or caregivers are more interested in their well-being of their pets, which again is really important. We're thinking about how happy are those dogs? Are we helping them from a species needs point of view in order to make sure that they're happy from a mental point of view, as well as the more traditionally concerned health point of view? And also we're putting quite a lot of pressure on our dogs in order to meet those expectations from what we expect dogs to do. So people are more and more expecting dogs to be with them more of the time. They expect to be able to take them to places, whether it's to their workplace or whether it's on public transport or whether it's simply to where they're enjoying time themselves. So for example, with them to a cafe. And we're asking dogs to cope with all of these different things they're going to experience during those times. So if we think about how we can try and have a happy, healthy dog, we need to be thinking about them living in an enriched environment. So what do I mean by that? Well, one of the most important things is to make sure that they have a place that they feel safe and secure at home. So having a safe haven or a den. And for me, obviously, one of the important ways to me thinking about that is in order from a pheromone point of view to make sure that they're feeling reassured and comfortable when we're thinking about using Adaptal. And it's creating that safe hub. Because we know if a dog's feeling safe and secure in their home environment, in a core central area, it gives them the skills to be able to be a bit more resilient about those things that we're expecting them to experience. But other things we can think about, do we just need to use a food bowl? But can we think of other interactive ways of feeding them that are getting them to use their brain a little bit more? So activity feeders, puzzle feeders, snuffle mats. These are all interesting ways to feed a dog rather than simply from a food bowl. Give them opportunities to chew. As you'll know, chewing is really important to dogs, and it's also a way for them to be able to sort of defuse some tension that they may be experiencing. Make sure we're providing play. Play is such an important opportunity for dogs to have during their day. And let's make sure that there is some novelty to that. So rotate toys so that they're more interesting each time. And make sure this is part of your daily experience with a dog if you're a caregiver. Social contact is obviously really, really, really important. Dogs are a very social species, as are we. So we need to make sure that during every day there is that social contact, whether it's with people here, if we're thinking about grooming time, petting time, playing time, training time is really, really important, as well as simply going out for exercise. but also thinking about social contact with other dogs, whether it's during your walks time or whether it's organised time that you're meeting another friendly dog for play and things like that. So there's lots of things that dogs require during their day-to-day life in order to have an opportunity to be fulfilling that life and having an enriched time. So if we look at the prevalence of behaviour issues, unfortunately, even if we're providing this wonderful relationship between humans and dogs, and we're also thinking about enriching their lives, dogs often will show problematic behaviour. And we can see here two different studies, a very different magnitude. You can see the study on the left there has got 400 dogs in it, and the study on the right has 4,000 dogs. But in a way, the results are quite similar. That there were between 85 and 86% of dogs were reported to have at least one problematic behaviour. And we can see that fear and anxiety or fearfulness is a common problem that is reported by owners during their lives with their dogs. There are a couple of other interesting things that I've pulled from the data that you can see there. On the left, the fearfulness was reported in dogs more if they were in a single dog household. So does having another dog within the home maybe give them some resilience? It's an interesting thing to consider. And then on the right there, you can see that there is often an association between fearful situations. So if a dog does find it difficult to spend time on their own, they have separation related problems, you may find that they also have problems with noises. So whether it's thunderstorm or fireworks. So there's an interrelatedness between dogs that find something fearful to actually it being extended to other situations as well. And this is really important for us to consider when we're managing those dogs that are showing signs of problem behaviour. And we have a responsibility as veterinarians in order to know if there are problems like this happening in the home or when they're out and about. Because actually these dogs that are showing chronic signs of stress, it's going to have an impact from their physical health. Because remember, it's all interconnected. We don't have mental health issues, problem issues in solidarity to actual physical problems. It's all interrelated. And obviously pain is a really important thing for us to consider. But we don't have time to discuss that today. So what's the impact of this problem behaviour? Well, we can see here that problems can develop over time. There can be misunderstanding and miscommunication. You know, the caregivers are not understanding the signs the dogs are giving to say, look, do you know what? I'm not coping very well whenever you take me out for a walk with all these other dogs that are around me, or maybe the traffic noise. I'm finding it difficult. And the problem can get worse and worse and worse. We can see that it impacts the relationship between the human and the dog. And so this is creating a human stress. This is creating problems within the family, and the human may become less tolerant. They may be more inclined to use punishment, which we know can actually make the situation worse. And all in all, it's coming to this horrible vicious cycle where the situation for the dog and the human is becoming a problem. And then as a result of this, you can have the dog is then relinquished to a shelter. And there are lots of dogs, unfortunately, that are relinquished by families due to inappropriate behaviour. And the problem is when we have dogs that are showing signs of inappropriate behaviour within a family setting, that unfortunately euthanasia may be the solution for that dog and for that charity setting. And so we could have a dog that is otherwise physically healthy that is actually not going to be able to be rehomed, and so it is euthanized. And so this is unfortunately a real problem, in that we have, if we could put something in place to help the caregiver understand the dog, understand the problems, and put some management in place, we may not reach the situation where unfortunately dogs have to be euthanized. So let's look at canine communication, because I've always mentioned how important it is for us to understand what dogs are trying to communicate. And as a social species, they will use body language a lot as well as their voice. So when we're thinking about body language, there's so much information we can look at. We can be looking at their ear position and their tail position, their general body posture and tension. And it can be really obvious the message that a dog is trying to convey. So we can see here two quite obvious signs with these dog images here. So on the left-hand side, you can see the play bow. You can see that positive interaction where the dog is looking to play. Whereas on the right-hand side, we can see signs that this dog is feeling very uncomfortable in the situation it is in. Its body is lowered, its tail is tucked below between its legs. The head is lowered, the ears are pulled back, and we've been told with the image that the dog is growling. So this dog is asking for some more space, for more distance between whatever it is feeling fearful about and itself. And this is obviously a really important sign for us as humans to understand and then do something about. But there will have been more subtle information coming from the dog before we get to this stage. And this is where it can be more tricky for everybody to understand and to pick up on those signs, because they can be really subtle. So we've got examples here of nose licking, being restless, pacing, looking to avoid that interaction, lifting a paw. These can be really easily missed if you're not looking for them. And so at SIVA, we're really aware that understanding body language is a very, very important topic for caregivers as well as for us professionals working with dogs every day. And so we've created this brand new programme to try and help people understand what to look for when we talk about body language and what that body language they see may mean. So here's going to be the next slide is just a quick video to introduce the programme to you. So the decoder level of the dog body language programme is the start. This is the stage that is open to dog parents as well as veterinary professionals to understand the basics. So understand that foundation part of reading body language of dogs and to understand how they're using their body to communicate. There will be further levels that are released in the future that are designed for you, essentially, for veterinary professionals. So we're looking at more in-depth understanding of body language and how we can apply that in our day-to-day lives within the clinical setting. So watch this space. That's not available now. It's the decoder course, which is available for everybody to do. We have some fabulous experts that have been part of the project to create the content. So we have Angela, who's from Spain. We have a team of 3 vets from France who are part of an organisation called Zopsi. And then we have Yolanda, who's from Belgium. And between them, they have created this great video content in order to demonstrate what dogs are doing and how we can interpret that different body language. So there are different chapters within this programme. We're looking at how to first off understand a happy dog. It's really important to understand when a dog is showing that it's feeling content so that we can base everything else to understand when that dog is not in a happy state. So obviously then we look at unhappy dogs as well as greetings between dogs and dogs, but also between dogs and humans. You know, those signs that could say, hang on, there's a problem here. We need to slow down or take the dog away from the situation, as well as to finish off with some tips to help everybody thinking about how to interact with dogs in a better way. So it's all online. It has a series of quizzes after each chapter, and it takes about an hour to go through it all. So it's another little hour of CPD that everybody within the clinic can do, so that you can read those dogs as soon as they put a paw through the front door of your clinic. So speak to your SEVA team to understand how you can access this great new series of information. So that's looking at body language. We also need to think about something that we can't see, that we can't hear, that we can't smell, that dogs are using to communicate. And that's pheromones. And these are natural messages that are being released into the air that dogs can perceive, but we can't, cats can't, there is no smell that's connected to them. So as a reminder about what I'm talking about here with how pheromones are being used and how they're being detected. And so we'll base it all on this image that you can see here. So it starts with having pheromones within the air. So we can see here with that number 1 that there are pheromone particles within the atmosphere. They then will enter through the incisive duct, which is just behind the incisive teeth, to go to the veromonasal organ, which is a specific organ that is between the nose and the mouth cavity, so within that hard palate. And it's here that those pheromones are detected. And then information is carried via to the accessory olfactory bulb, which is slightly different area to where smell from the nasal cavity is taken to the olfactory bulb. So we're talking about a specific mechanism, a different pathway for the pheromones to be detected. And then once we have that detection via the accessory olfactory bulb, we're going to have the limbic system affected. And of course, the behavioural response as a result of this will depend on the pheromone detected. The response of a dog to detecting an alarm pheromone, so from the sweaty paw messages that are left in your consulting room or maybe on the table or on the floor from a dog that has had a fearful experience, the next dog coming in, if you haven't removed that pheromone message, is going to automatically detect that fear alarm message from that previous dog. So their response is going to be from a protective point of view emotionally. Whereas if we have an appeasing pheromone message, a positive message of comfort and reassurance, emotionally that dog is going to be in a more positive situation from the message that it's detecting from that pheromone. So it's important to think about pheromones being detected by the veromonasal organ, which is separate to those smells that they will be detecting. So lavender, chamomile, valerian is all working via aromatherapy, which is via the olfactory system. So when we're thinking about adaptor, we're really, really excited about the dog appeasing pheromone. And this is the message that mother dogs are naturally releasing during lactation from their mammary area, from the skin around their nipples. And this pheromone provides comfort and security to those puppies, and it helps them to be able to adapt to any stressful situations they may come across. Because remember, they have got to start learning about the world around them. And as they start moving further and further away from their mother, they're going to encounter new things and potentially things that they are worried or scared about. And so when they encounter these, they will come back to their mother and they will get that hit of pheromone if they nuzzle near her mammary glands. And so it will give them that confidence and reassurance to go, okay, I'm going to explore further and again and see what's really going on with that new thing. And so it provides that sort of security blanket for them to start exploring about the world around them. And when we think about adaptor, we're using that same message of comfort and security that dog appeasing pheromone supplies. And it has the same effects on any age of dogs that are facing challenging situations. It's not just puppies. Yes, Puppies are born with the ability to respond to pheromones because this is a really important biological way for their mother to communicate to them even before their eyes and ears are open. But you do not, as a dog, lose that ability to respond to pheromones over your lifespan. Once you stop being fed by your mother, when you're being weaned, you don't then lose the ability to respond to pheromones. That ability remains throughout your life. And you've had Adaptil as a diffuser available to you recently, and also the collar. And the exciting thing today is to talk about the fact that you have a new opportunity with the spray that is coming to market. So pheromonotherapy has been shown to be effective to reassure animals using this natural chemical signalling messaging approach. And it's a way to help animals and dogs feel more comfortable in those challenging situations, to help them feel more relaxed in those difficult situations. And as I've said, we've had a diffuser, we've had a collar, but we've also now had this spray as an opportunity to provide that pheromone into a dog's environment. So, of course, pheromones are not an alternative to drugs. If a dog has a severe fear issue, then we need to be thinking about psychoactive medications, but we can use pheromones alongside. Pheromones, as you saw a couple of slides back, are not being absorbed into the bloodstream. They are going to the veromonasal organ. So they're safe to use alongside any other medications or supplements or foods that a dog may need to receive. And as I've already said, that dog appeasing pheromone message is a safety signal for dogs of any age. Whether you're a puppy or a 14-year-old dog, you are still going to have that same ability to respond to the pheromone. So here is Adaptil Transport Spray. The spray contains dog appeasing pheromone at 2% level, and it's within an alcohol solvent. Okay, so this is important to think about when I talk about how to use the spray. Once you've sprayed an area or an object, the pheromone will last there for about 5 hours. And you've got the 60 milliliter bottle, which will give you around 400 sprays. So that comes out to about 50 uses. And the 20 ml bottle is for about 16 uses. When using the spray, it's really important to think about the alcohol solvent, because dogs have an amazing sense of smell, and alcohol does have a smell associated with it. So you need to leave 15 minutes between spraying an object, whether it's the dog's bedding, a carrier, a winter jacket, your car. There needs to be a time between doing that and the dog coming into the environment or the object that has been sprayed, to allow time for the alcohol to evaporate away. And then that leaves the non-smelling pheromone behind. So just please remember about that 15 minutes. So let's have a look at some of the evidence supporting the use of Adaptil spray. And the most important and easy one to think about probably is transport, because it's a really simple and easy way to use the appeasing pheromone within a car. So this is a study that was looking at the spray versus a placebo. The spray was applied to the car at least 10 minutes before the travel, because of what we've talked about with that alcohol solvent, and it included 32 dogs. So each dog had to do at least 4 trips within the car, and they had to last at least 15 minutes. But we had 21 dogs that did an extra 5th trip. Exclusion criteria included dogs that were aggressive within the car or hyperactive, or any that had a physical disorder that was diagnosed by a veterinary examination. During the trips, the caregivers would look at some different signs, and they had to indicate which of the 11 signs that were indicated their dog usually displayed during a car trip, and that was taken as the baseline. And then after each trip, the caregiver would note down which signs they had seen during that trip, and whether it got any worse with the sign, there was no change, or actually whether it had got better. And a car sickness rate was generated from this data. So here, looking at this graph, we can see the difference between the dogs that received the dog appeasing pheromone with Adaptil in blue and those that had placebo in grey. And we're looking here at the improvement indicated across those that car sickness scale. And you can see that there was a significant improvement for the dog appeasing pheromone group compared to the placebo group. Apart from trip 3, where there was a slight reduction in that score for the dogs that received the Adaptil. But generally, you can see that there is an improvement over time using the dog appeasing pheromone. When we look at the when we look at the different sorts of signs here, looking at this graph, we're looking to see whether the dogs had the sign disappearing or just an improvement. And we're looking again at the dogs receiving Adaptil in blue and those receiving the placebo in grey. And again, you can see that there was a real difference between the dogs responding to Adaptil compared to those that had placebo. So we can see more of an improvement when we're using Adaptil. But actually, it seemed to have more effect on signs such as salivation than maybe some of the signs that we would expect, such as restlessness. But overall, this study shows that there's a clear positive benefit of using Adaptil during car journeys for dogs that are showing signs that they find this challenging for them. Because, of course, it's very odd to be in a car as a dog. So how can we extrapolate this to maybe everyday situations that you find your clients are finding? So if they take their dog out in a stroller, then they can spray the bedding prior to that trip outside, so that dog has that feeling of comfort and reassurance within the stroller, regardless of what else is happening as their caregiver is out and about in the towns, whether it's people, other dogs, the noises of traffic. They've got that security within their stroller. For dogs that are having clothing put on for trips outside, so in the winter when it's very cold and having a jacket placed on, you could spray that jacket with the Adaptil spray 15 minutes before you put it on and go out. And again, that dog is taking that pheromone support and comfort with them during that trip outside. And then, of course, that study was looking at car travel, but also we know that dogs have trips in lots of other different forms of transport. And so whether they are going in a carrier, as we have here, where you could spray the bedding or the carrier beforehand, or whether it's to spray their bedding. So if they're going to sit and settle on a mat whilst they're on a train, for example, you can spray that mat beforehand. So you're providing that pheromone comfort with them wherever you go. And it's really simple and easy for clients to do. It's quite easy to understand spraying the object and then taking it with you. It's just a reminder of that 15 minutes that's really important. This next study is looking at use within the veterinary clinic, and it's not using the spray, it's using the diffuser, but I've included it here as you have an opportunity to use the spray in a similar way if plugging in a diffuser is not possible within your clinic, because I appreciate sometimes it's hard to find a suitable plug, or you might not want to be leaving it on all the time, which is what you should be doing with a diffuser. So using the spray on blankets or on towels, on your consulting room table is an alternative way of using the pheromone. You just need to think about that 15 minutes. So my recommendation is always to spray towels at the start of the day and at lunchtime, so that you have a batch of them ready for during your consulting room times. So this study was looking at using the diffuser, as I said, or a placebo plugged into the waiting room and the consulting room, and understanding how dogs were responding in those two areas of the clinic whilst they were exposed to either the Adaptil or the placebo. And there was a structured visit in order to be able to assess the response of the dogs between the two areas, and a video was taken so the researchers could then assess any behaviours showing anxious behaviour, and also looking at relaxed behaviour, and looking at the duration and the frequency of those two states. So here's looking at the results for the waiting room. And you can see here from this graph, if you look on the right, the duration of the anxious state is more for the dogs that had placebo compared to those that were when they were exposed to Adaptil. But also the frequency and duration of the relaxed state is increased when they were exposed to Adaptil. And it's a similar picture when we look at the consulting room. So again, the duration of the anxious state is more when they're exposed to placebo, and the frequency of the relaxed state is increased when we're looking at them exposed to Adaptil. So this study really shows the importance of using Adaptil within your clinic setting as well. I appreciate lots of you are probably already using Feliway, but maybe not using Adaptil. And my plea to you is don't forget dogs. Don't assume that dogs are coping better than cats just because we find it easier to handle them. They still will be finding coming to your clinic challenging. It's difficult coming to a clinic, even though you've got your favourite human with you and we are being friendly and hopefully in our handling and our interactions and management. The dog may still have issues in the fact that it's in a painful state or it's suffering from a disease. It's still not home. There are lots of different smells. There are lots of different people. You are going to be handling them in a way that is not normal for at home. So let's be using the dog appeasing pheromone just to give them a little bit more confidence and reassurance within your clinic setting as well. So why make Adaptil part of your daily routine? Well, hopefully you've seen that there's evidence behind using Adaptil, whether it's looking at the spray specifically, and I picked up the transport situation there to look at using the spray, or whether in your veterinary setting. But there are many more studies that are supporting the use of Adaptil within challenging situations that dogs may find. And so speak to your CEVA team if you want to know more about those different studies, because of course I didn't have the time, unfortunately, to discuss everything with you today. But this is a product that is respected around the world. It is widely recommended by vets and key opinion leaders to try and help dogs supported with whether it's within the veterinary setting or in a home setting. And we know that it's safe to use and convenient and effective because you have a choice to whether to use the diffuser, the collar or the spray. And as I said, here's just a small snapshot of some of the studies that are available. So I didn't get a chance today to talk about staying at home alone, looking at fearful response to loud noises, outdoor fears. We obviously looked at travel today, but also training and trying to provide a positive environment for dogs to have good learning during that time. So you can see here some of the studies that underneath they are referenced. As I said, please speak to your CEVA team if you want to know more. So it's all well and good having evidence and studies and things published in journals, but what about real life use? Do people find that it helps their dogs? And here is just a small survey that was conducted in the US. And these were Adaptil users to understand, did they see an improvement in the different signs that they were using Adaptil for, whether it was the diffuser, the collar or the spray. And you can see here that from between 77 up to 85% of those customers were reporting an improvement in their dog, whether it was loud noises, general anxiety, being home alone or travel. So using Adaptil in the right way, in the right situations, can make a real difference to dogs. So now today we have the opportunity of using the diffuser, which is generally suited for dogs that have issues that is mostly at home. So thinking about spending time home alone can be a good one here, or maybe it's fireworks or thunderstorms when the dog is at home. You have the collar, which is great from the point of view that can help and support a dog wherever it is, whether it's at home or out and about. And then we have now the Adaptil transport spray, which is really useful, obviously, for travelling, but also we've looked at some of those other different times when a dog might be out and about and the client doesn't want to use a collar, but actually we can use the spray in those targeted situations. The only plea I have for you is to think about making sure you're using it correctly, that we are setting proper expectations. We're helping dogs feel in a more positive, emotional way. It's not obviously using a psychoactive medication. So we can't expect dogs to be sedated or to be showing no signs at all, but we're helping them feel better during those challenging situations, and all dogs will respond. So although it might not take you from, if it was a scale of 0 to 10 for a behaviour problem, from a 10 for the clients down to a 2, you would take that dog maybe down from a 10 to a 9. We're always going to be helping that dog feel more comfortable in the situation, which means the environmental modification, the training that you may put in place, the different management options will be easier for the dog to take on board and learn from, because it's got that comforting support from the pheromone. And of course, we should be thinking about using all of those things I've mentioned alongside the use of pheromones when we're dealing with behaviour issues. So just to quickly finish up, some commonly asked questions that I am asked lots of times, so I just wanted to pass on to you. Can you use Adaptil Transport Spray alongside the other Adaptil products? And the answer is yes. It is simply impossible to overdose on pheromones. So I have no problem with somebody using the Adaptil diffuser in their home and then, for example, using the spray in their car, having the experience of coming into contact with the pheromone within the clinic setting. Absolutely. So it's no problem to have lots of pheromone around. We talked about whether you can use Adaptil Transport alongside other things that you might be using to manage a behaviour problem, or perhaps, another medical issue that a dog has. And absolutely, the beauty of using the pheromone is that it is safe to use it alongside other medications or diets that you might be using. And it's just that last little reminder from me about the 15-minute waits, because it's so important to make sure that the smell of the alcohol has disappeared, leaving the non-smelling pheromone behind, because dogs have such an amazing sense of smell. So we want them to have a positive experience when they enter an area that has been sprayed with a pheromone. So thank you very much for your time and your attention. I hope this has been useful for you. And I look forward to hearing about how the Adaptil Transport Spray is being adopted in Korea. Thank you very much.